You're listening to the Northern Hunter Podcast, home of all things hunting, fishing, and outdoors in Alaska. All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, James Payne.
I'm just kidding.
Oh my God, one of these days we'll get one. My name is James Payne. I am your host for the show. I am here joined with my co-host, Dalton Gray.
Hello, how are you doing?
Fantastic. And Mariah Humphreys.
Howdy.
All right. How you guys liking the snow we're having recently?
It's been a little surprising.
Yeah, I don't think it stopped snowing for a while. I mean, it had intermittent.
For like 4 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been enough that there's been a few mornings that I've got to, sit in the plow truck and do nothing but listen to audiobooks, and I've enjoyed that.
Podcasts.
Man, I need to get me one of those one day. A
plow truck?
Yeah.
Well, this is a real nice one.
Audiobooks are cheap, James.
Be a lot better than the Home Depot shovel.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so here you have a little thing you want to bring up for this episode, getting this kicked off here.
Last episode, we were talking about stuff we keep in our packs, and we started off with talking about lighters and survival things and fire starters. And I mentioned, I believe at some point, a electric lighter that I had that I haven't taken it hunting or anything. And I just flipped it on as soon as I started talking about lighters, and it just came on. So it took a good 10 seconds or something like that.
Okay.
Now, when I first bought this, one end is, it looks like a USB stick. And one end, you flip it out, and you plug it into a wall USB charger and it charge it.
Gotcha.
The other end looks like a USB stick, and so you flip it out, and it's got a little round cigarette lighter coil in there. And it gets very hot. It'll light a piece of paper on fire very easily, or sawdust. I've used it on a few different things. And so I bought it, and this is cool. I have to test this thing out. I don't smoke, but just a disclaimer. But I just thought it looked cool, like a cool gimmick. So I grabbed it. And anyway, long story short, it was in my pocket, and the other day my wife brought it to me, and she goes, "Hey, this was in your pocket. It went through the washer."
Okay.
Oh.
So I grabbed it. I can see it's still there's still moisture inside of it. So, it's been, if it went through the washer recently and just came out of a wet pair of pants. And so she hands it to me, and I just grab it and, do what I think any of us would do. And I flick it on, and immediately it comes on. I was like, well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I got on my phone and went to put a note in our notes app for the show that I want to talk about it. Well, a day or two later, I flip it on, and it's not coming on.
Oh.
And today, I just flip it on, and I sit here, let it sit here for like 10 seconds earlier today, and it actually came on.
Okay.
Actually, super simple inside. I took it apart and looked at it, and didn't change anything, and put it back together, and eventually it will come on. That being said, I don't think I would recommend this for a survival situation unless you keep it waterproof.
Yeah.
I was real excited about the fact that it worked right after it came out of the washer.
Right.
Right.
Anyway.
It maybe just helped with the connectivity.
Yeah, I don't know.
A little bit of moisture in there.
That moisture corroded something sitting there later and causing it to slow down.
Right. And honestly, a lot of those kind of gas station style fire starting systems would not be what I think anybody should recommend. A Bic lighter or anything kind of gimmicky like that. If it costs you $3 or
this
less.
Was $8.99, man.
Oh, was it? Oh, man. Sorry. I didn't realize we were in that tier. My bad.
Big spender.
Big spender. I wish I had your money. No, that's...
It's not that I have money. I just happened to have $8.99 when I saw it.
Yeah, right. Happened to be in the building quite a bit, huh? But anyway, so we have an interesting episode for you guys today when you're listening. We're going to be talking about the breakdown of how Alaska divides up the state. So if you're looking at coming up here for a hunt, maybe you're a little confused on which area you're going to be in, or you're new to the state, or maybe you're just looking to branch out and get somewhere new. We're going to talk about all that here in a little bit. We've got a couple emails to address beforehand, though, if you want to take that away.
Yeah. So a good friend of mine, Thomas, that listens to the show quite a bit. He's a good friend of mine, and he wrote in reference to our episode 11 about brown bear guns. And he says, and I quote, "No 458 Win Mag. A lot of folks prefer that to everything else. Good podcast."
Thank you.
To that I say, thank you, Thomas. We appreciate your input. And yes, I do have a soft spot in my heart, or a calloused spot, I should say, for the 458 Win Mag.
A bruised spot.
Yes. I do agree that there are a lot of great brown bear guides out there that really do favor the 458 Win Mag and the 458 Lot as well for a good brown bear stopper, for a guide gun in particular. that is a great option. And when you get up into that realm, you can shoot bullet weights well up into the 450 and 500 grain range, even up into 550 if you need to.
Yep.
I know someone that has a couple of 4.58 lots, which is a hopped up version, basically of a 4.58 Win Mag. It's just a lengthened case.
Yep.
And it requires a true Magnum length action. And the individual I'm talking about has, I believe it's 500 grain Barnes TSX hand loads loaded up. It is
my goodness
punishment. But he swears up and down, no, the recoil's not that bad. It's just a big push.
He's just constantly in a sling.
All right. Well, it must be like getting
he's not a big guy either.
It must be like getting pushed by John Cena, but
he's not a big guy either. So.
No, he's not a big guy, but he's not afraid of recoil and he hates muzzle brakes. So
yeah.
Well,
and to be fair, there are many guns that would probably do the job just fine that we didn't get to in that episode. It was a very long episode, and we didn't have time to get to quite everything.
Yeah, we were just trying to hit all of the mainstream calibers, the 338s, the 375s, and the 416s.
So if you were listening to that and we didn't mention your pet load, your preferred,
let us know, and if we like it, we'll mention it.
We'll mention it, but it also doesn't mean that it's not a decent round. It just means that we didn't have time to get to it.
I know
it wasn't on the top tier of the priority list for us.
Yeah.
So
I know a couple of folks in particular that I won't mention their names, but maybe at some point we can have this guy on. He's been to Kodiak a couple of times, and he and his wife have both killed trophy brown bears with 30-06s, 708s, 308s, and proper bullet construction, proper shot placement, and proper situational awareness to read the situation and not to shoot in a particular time.
Yep.
To have the advantage of surprise when the bear doesn't know you're there. A well placed bullet from a 06 or a 308 will absolutely do the job. It might not be ideal for following up in the brush, but it'll do the job. So that being said, we won't park on that any longer, but we appreciate your input, Thomas. You're a saint and a scholar, and Thomas is a good friend of mine. So anyway, then we had another email from our friend Brad, and he had a few points to make about episode 12 with
last week's episode.
Yes, with items that should never leave your pack. And I'm not going to read his email. He explained a few different things, and I'll summarize and say. He wanted to make sure that we knew that he carried a candle, an emergency candle. He said it'll light even when it's wet. And that's a really good idea. If you're in a hypothermic situation where you're just trying to get warm and you don't have a way to start a fire and you have like a TP style shelter, or I guess if you even had like a normal backpacking tent, it would probably work just fine. But you just put the little candle in the bottom of your tent, obviously in the bottom, you don't want to burn your tent down.
Yeah.
And, don't tip it over.
Right.
And he said that the amount of heat that will come from that candle alone will greatly warm up that space. And as I was reading his email, I thought about that. And I thought about a couple of times last fall when I was out, when I would fire up my MSR cook stove in my tent. I remembered how hot it got in there.
Yeah.
And just how much warmer that made it, and how you could use your stove in the same type of situation to get yourself warmed up.
And that thing should light pretty easily when wet too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so the emergency candle, I think, is a really good idea.
It is. It's light.
I appreciate it, Brad. That's a good idea.
And to anybody that's kind of scoffing at that right now, do not discount the heat that a candle can push off.
Do some research on people that have used one.
I have.
Yeah.
And a candle puts off a lot more heat than you might think it does, especially for the longevity that it's going to burn for. A lot of these survival style candles, they're not super big candles, obviously, because you're trying to pack them, but they will burn for hours.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And you're going to get
You're
going to get a decent BTU off of that. So,
and especially you're in that small of a confined space. There's no ventilation in and out of your tent necessarily that's going to blow it out or remove that heat very easily. So, that could be a really great option. So appreciate that, Brad. He also mentioned a few other things. He talked about a small tube of super glue, which is my oversight. I always do have that in my kill kit, in my little red dry bag in my pack. That's always in there. Sometimes even 2 tubes of it. And that's good for first aid applications. stitching up some cuts. If your bandages won't stick, I know Brad mentioned that in his email. That's a really good point as well. Again, I carry that everywhere I go, and I just completely overlooked it.
Yep.
And it's also great for gear repair. When we were in Southeast, James's hip waders tore, and I took an antler from my big buck through the neoprene sock of my Sims waders, and we were able to use some tenacious tape. Some tenacious tape, and then underneath the tenacious tape, before you put the tape patch on, you put a little bit of super glue or Gorilla Glue or whatever you have. And with some tape over that, with the super glue, that worked just fine and held together and got the waders through the hunt.
That's another thing that
you can patch up your puffy coat, your raincoat, if you have a rip in your tent. So super glue is a great thing that shouldn't leave your pack either. I think
doesn't leave your pack is tenacious tape, right?
Yeah, tenacious tape is a great repair item.
I was going to mention, Brad mentioned at the beginning of his email. I think we mentioned this slightly. We didn't really talk about it maybe much as we could have in the episode specifically, but that survival equipment is dependent on where you're going,
right,
and what your trip is, and that's absolutely true. If you're going to if you're hunting Coues deer, probably don't need that survival candle.
Yeah, probably
right.
You'd be surprised how cold it can get down there in the nighttime.
And the time of year and all that kind of stuff. But that's just.
But you're not going to get wet from crossing a river.
When you're hitting 115 degrees in the daytime, when it drops down to 60 at night, it feels very cold.
Yeah,
but that being said, I think that's true of certain items.
It seems like as an Alaskan, that would be comfort.
Right. Yeah. That's kind of where I'm at. It's like there's some things that just, no matter where I go, it's always with me.
Right.
Yeah.
And so majority of what we talked about, I feel falls under that category. I think no matter where I'm going, I might bring different items that are beyond that list. And everywhere I go has items that are beyond that list. But everything, I would say everything we talked about, I always have on me. And that's just, it was more of a basics thing. So we can go into more in-depth area specific things at some time, but that was just a basics of survival.
So anyway, well, thanks for writing in, Brad and Thomas. If you have any questions or comments for us, email us at
thenorthernhunter.com. If you go there, you can hit the contact us button at the top of the page, and there you can send in put a message there. Or if you want to just email us directly from your phone or something, it's info@thenorthernhunter.com.
Excellent.
Yep. And we will read it and do our best to get back to you.
Everybody knows that one of the most important pieces of a hunter's kit is their knife. Whether you're looking for a fleshing blade, a skinning blade, or just a quality, multi-purpose knife for the backcountry, Yukon River Knives has what you need. They offer blades such as the Hunter, Small Game, and the Sendero Bush Knife. Yukon River Knives is based in Texas and has a unique mission goal in that a percentage of all knife sales go to support a missionary in Alaska. Now, Dalton, you've experienced with these knives in the field. Talk to us about that.
As a matter of fact, I have used a few of their knives and watched my good friend Remy use them for years with great results. They have a micarta handle that doesn't get slippery when it gets wet, and they have phenomenal edge retention for long skinning jobs. Go check out our web link on thenorthernhunter.com, and that'll take you directly to Yukon River Knives website to see their full selection and order your knives for your next hunt with the discount code TheNorthernHunter at checkout. And remember, nothing replaces a quality hunting knife. All right, folks, I want to take a second to tell you about a product I found this last year and have absolutely fallen in love with. It's the Stealthy Hunter rifle cover. I used one on a recent black-tailed deer hunt in southeast Alaska, and it did a great job of keeping the saltwater and debris out of the action and also protecting the scope on my rifle from getting knocked around and damaged. On top of all that, the carry handle made it easy to transport the rifle to and from the boat during the hunt. When it got wet from rain and ocean spray, I hung it up at camp to dry at night, and it was always dry in 20 minutes or less. Stealthy Hunter also offers a wide variety of nutritional supplements for the outdoorsman, such as CBD oils, essential vitamins, turmeric, and bone broth. In the gear shop, they also have a lightweight first aid kit, glassing pads, and stuff sacks to organize your gear and your pack. Go check out Stealthy Hunter's website and use the code TheNorthernHunter at checkout to get a discount on your order today. All Stealthy Hunter equipment is proudly made in the USA.
Hey guys, if you've listened to the show for any amount of time, you've likely heard Dalton and I go back and forth about bullet construction and how I like rapid expanding bonded core bullets that leave massive wound channels. I've also stated I would never use a monolithic bullet. Well, I'm here to tell you about the company that finally changed my mind. Hammer Bullets produces what I would consider the most premium and best working monolithic bullets on the market today. These bullets are designed so that after penetrating the hide of an animal, the front half of the bullet explodes, shedding its petals and imparting massive damage to the vital areas while retaining the rear shank for maximum penetration, effectively closing the gap between lead core and monolithic construction. The guys at Hammer designed these bullets with 100% focus on how they perform once they reach their destination. But don't let that fool you. These bullets have amazing VCs and have specialized pressure grooves built in for amazing inherent accuracy. They have a minimum velocity rating of 1,800 feet per second, which allows for long-range shots but have no maximum velocity, making them perfect for every cartridge from your granddaddy's old 30-30 to the high-velocity rounds like the Weatherby 3378 without having to worry about your bullet failing. They've also recently partnered with Weatherby to provide factory ammunition for a multitude of cartridges. To view their expansive selection and find the perfect match for your hunting needs, go to hammerbullets.com to buy yours today and drop the hammer on your next adventure.
Excellent.
So to get to the meat of this episode, so this is going to be basically all about just how Alaska breaks down its regions and what you can do in each one, basically. A little bit about maybe some special areas and some special seasons.
In direct reference to hunting.
In direct reference to hunting, correct. Okay. And so, Dalton, this is kind of your brainchild, so you brought it up to us. So, yeah, so I'll let you kick it off.
Yeah, this is something that I see a lot with clients, in particular in the guiding industry. Clients really don't have any idea, if they haven't hunted in Alaska before, how Alaska breaks apart the state into different regions. I know in the lower 48, there are a whole lot of things that we are unfamiliar with, and they feel the same way about us. I think Alaska does a great job in the regs of explaining the rules and the processes to get a particular tag and how to access an area. And but I think for the most part, an out-of-stater looks at the Alaska regs and just gets overwhelmed by detail.
So now, arguably, I will say Alaska probably has the best regs book I've ever read. The second would probably be Michigan. Yeah. But Michigan's game regs are pretty similar to Alaska's.
I would say the same thing, except that I haven't read very many. So that's a disclaimer there.
But what I'm getting at is Alaska's regs are so detailed that it can sometimes be information overload when when you're not from the state and you don't recognize the river names, you don't recognize, especially when you're looking at borders and things like that, trying to figure out exactly what part of the state you're going to be in.
Yeah.
So
anyway, that's something that I have seen a lot, and my buddy Remy and I were talking about this and just trying to come up with some good things that should be in the podcast that we think is really going to be true to our plan of focus and trying to help people understand how they can access Alaska.
Yep.
Whether that's furthering the knowledge that you already have about it, if you already live here, or if you already hunted here before, or like this one's geared towards if you're just trying to get into it. So Alaska has what's called GMUs, or Game Management Units. And if you look in the Alaska Fish and Game regs book for big game hunting, you'll see there are 26
total.
26 different game management units. And they vary in size quite a bit.
Greatly.
By a lot.
Quite a bit.
It's kind of like with the states, how they just get bigger as you go west. Right? Yeah. It's kind of the same thing. You start south of Alaska and there are these tiny little units. And then
a lot of the units, a lot of the larger units are broken down into sub-units. So let's just say that you have our home unit around Fairbanks is 20B, 20 Bravo. And that is a sub-unit of Unit 20.
Yes.
20A is south of us. 20C is east of us?
Yeah.
Or no, 20C is north. Yeah. No.
Yes. Yeah. So you can tell, folks.
It's south. Or no, it's west of us.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
Well, at any regard, you see what I'm talking about. There are a whole lot of different subunits, and we don't even keep up with where exactly all of them are.
Yeah, it's south.
We just kind of look at them as it's time for us to go to each one. But that being said, Unit 1 starts down in southeast around Juneau area. I'm sorry, not Juneau, down by Wrangell, isn't it? And then if you were
there, Mo.
Yeah, so 1 looks like Ketchikan, Wrangell area. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
And then they work their way up from there. And then, for instance, Kodiak is its own unit. That's Unit 8. The Alaska Peninsula is largely Unit 9, and there's subunits. Like there's 9D, 9E, 9C, 9A there, 9B. And so anyway, there's really no rhyme or reason to the numbering of the units necessarily.
I want to interject real quick. Mo is on a map right now, and we're looking at this as we're talking about it. Where did you find this map for people that might be looking at coming in here?
If you're looking at coming to Alaska, if you Google ADFG regulations, that stands for Alaska Department of Fish and Game and Regulations. You click on that, there will be a link either to the location in Alaska you're going to look for, or just a link to the full regulations, which is what I have pulled up now, which is like, I don't know, like it's 100 and some pages, 150 pages, somewhere around there. It always is every year. Anyway, and if you just go through all the stuff that's in there at the beginning, right before you get into like Unit 1 information, there's a map that shows where all the units are located in Alaska. Another good way to find this is either Go Hunt or OnX has game management units. So if you're looking around on there, you can set that as a layer and figure out what area you're looking at.
Right.
Yep. And if you're on this map that we're looking at currently on Alaska's government website, the ADFG, they break it up really nicely to look at. It is color coded, and there's bold lines that tell you your actual different units. So you can zoom into one specific, and then it gives you a lighter colored line that is then your subunits, and you'll be able to see exactly what Dalton's talking about here. I will say the rhyme and reason seems to be east to west, south to north, if that makes sense. Like a reverse typewriter almost.
Yes.
It looks like they just kind of...
What I meant by rhyme or reason was there's really no reason that you should be concerned at which order they're in.
Oh, correct.
There's not like a hierarchy of desirability. Because from one unit to the next, you could be in you will be in very different hundreds of miles apart areas in some instances. So anyway, Alaska breaks it down into game management units. In each game management unit, you have a section of the regs pertaining to that particular unit by number, okay?
Right.
And then subunit. In that set of pages, and 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 pages, depending on the unit,
or more,
it will explain the subunits per species. So, for instance, let's pull up Unit 20, Mariah, as James, you're talking.
Now, it does it per species, and then the subunits are within that.
Correct.
So it's not going to have some of them. I think there are a couple, like 14A and B are grouped together, but 14C is separated for some reason. Now, but you're going to go to Unit 20. You're going to go to black bear or moose or caribou or whatever it is that you're looking at. And then within that, there's going to be multiple different lines. It just looks like a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet, basically.
Right.
That'll have your subunits in there.
So, for instance, if you look at Unit 20, which is the unit that we live in here in Fairbanks. The first thing you see on the page is open to, and then it says R, which is residents only. And then it says B, which is residents and non-residents. And then it says N, non-residents only. This is at the top of the page. And it's at the top of the page in every unit header. Now, on the left-hand column of the regs, you'll see those letters used for coding as to what the hunt opportunities are for that particular species and that particular subunit. So, for instance, the first item on the list, the first species is black bear. And on the far left, it says B, so that's both non-residents and residents. And then it says 20. Now, in a unit where it does not give a subunit with the unit number, that means it is all-inclusive. So anywhere in Unit 20, and then it says 3 bears. So that's black bears, non-resident or resident. In Unit 20, any subunit, 3 bears. And then in the next column, it says HT. That stands for harvest ticket. That is for a resident. You literally just print out your tags or go to Fish and Game or Fred Meyer's or Sportsman's Warehouse or whatever you want. And you can just get your black bear tags.
Right.
Yeah.
And then on the far right, it says no closed season.
I love it when I see that.
Yeah, that's super handy. So
that's why I live here.
So for black bear in Unit 20, resident or non-resident, it's a harvest ticket hunt, and you can shoot 3 bears, no closed season.
Yep.
Now, I should also clarify while we're talking about this, the regulatory hunting years in Alaska
are weird.
They shift per. It's the same except for bears, basically. And trapping. Trapping's a little weird.
Yeah.
But everything else is the same.
So the hunting regulatory year in Alaska is from July 1st to June 30th. So it's a calendar year that begins and ends with the end of June, the beginning of July.
Right.
So that is when your tags
expire.
Not for all of them.
Almost all of them.
Okay. If you shoot a black bear,
your harvest tickets
for bear.
That's what I'm talking about here.
Yeah. Okay.
So
okay. I thought you meant all species.
No.
Okay.
You can get your moose tag in February, and it's good for that year.
Right. But, that's what I was getting to. Yeah.
I should have clarified.
Yes.
So, okay. I said black bear. Let's talk about this then. Let's use it this way. If you live in an area like ours is in Unit 20, and you get 1 grizzly bear per regulatory year, okay, and you shoot a grizzly bear in May, let's just say of 2023. If you shoot a grizzly bear this spring, obviously in season,
yeah,
then you can also shoot another one this fall. Correct. Even though you're only in a 1 bear per year unit.
Yep.
The hunt year turns over on July 1st.
Yes.
So as soon as grizzly bears come back open on September 1st in 20A or 20B, you're able to shoot another grizzly bear. However, if you shoot a grizzly bear in the fall, you are then ineligible in that unit of 1 bear per year to shoot one the following spring.
I really want to talk to somebody about why it's set up that way too.
Because it might just be so people can come up here, you know, or so residents or however, I don't know. Some reason they thought it was a good idea to be able to hunt in the same spring and fall in the same year. But then obviously that messes up your spring.
But then if I see one during moose season, now it screws up my baiting season.
And there are a lot of guys that think that way.
Yeah.
But you can shoot 3 bears.
No, I'm not. I'm talking grizzly. For grizzly. Right. If I see a grizzly while I'm out caribou hunting, I can then not shoot one at the bait next year if it comes in. So if you know why that's the case, let me know. It's been an annoyance for a long time. At
any rate, that's kind of a general breakdown of one species and how that system and that special coding works. Now, let's jump into the next thing. Let's talk about hunt opportunities. So there are HT, which stands for harvest ticket.
Yep.
That's in the permit and hunt number column. And then you'll see something that starts with an R. Some of these hunts have an R at the beginning of a number.
Real quickly.
Okay,
I want to interject here. So if you scroll up a little bit, Mo. So if you go to the bottom of any of these columns we're talking about, so you go to Unit 20, you're going to see black bears, grizzlies, bison, and so on. Directly underneath that format, it's going to explain this to you. And that's where you would go to look to find all of this, what Dalton's talking about here.
Okay. So if you look in the hunt permit number in the second column over from the right, you'll see, okay, so for instance, I'm looking at caribou for 20A. This is on page what of the regs, Mariah? Scroll down. So
109.
Page 109. Okay. So at the top of the column, I'm sorry, the third letter down.
It's the column labeled permit/hunt number.
Yes. Permit/hunt number. The third line down, a second column from the right, it says RC 860. Okay. That stands for registration caribou, and then the hunt number is 860. Yep. Now, I believe that's a 40-mile hunt. Is that right? RC 860?
I think 860 is the fall caribou hunt.
I believe that's correct.
Yes, it is.
Yes, RC 860 is a 40-mile.
Yep.
So at any rate, registration hunts are different from harvest tickets.
They are.
And how so, James?
So with registration hunts, basically, it's the same in harvest tickets in the sense that anybody that's accessible to a harvest ticket is able to get one. So if you're...
Are they free?
They are free, actually. So if you're able to go, let's say you're a resident and you can just go get your moose ticket at Sportsman's or wherever, you can go to Fish and Game and get your registration. You already qualify. There's no special qualifications for those. But because they are a different process of how they maybe manage that herd specifically.
Right.
They don't want to give out just unlimited number of harvest tickets because Alaska does not have a limited number of tags that they give out. It's you show up and you get your moose tag pretty much. There's not a race to get them like there are in some lower 48 states for elk tags and things like that.
Okay.
So, but with registration tags, it's because they want to limit the number of opportunity to take out of this herd. It, like for the 40-mile hunt, when that herd's on the road, if there was unlimited tags, man, that herd wouldn't last 2 years. I mean, it would be insane. So what they do is they limit the number of tags, and you have to actually go to AEFG, their main office, and print it out. You can do it online too. If you have access to a printer, you can go to the AEFG website and do it. You don't have to do it in person. I'm just a personable individual. So you go in there, you get your tag, and that's pretty much it at that point. Other than that, it's the same as a harvest ticket. You'll notch that tag. It's going to have the same notching system as any other tag that you'll get. But there's usually an extra requirement involved. So like with the 40-mile hunt, they have been requiring the last several years, kind of intermittently, a requirement to bring in a 4-inch segment of the lower jaw. And that's not, I don't even think that's necessarily.
That's some years, not all years.
Right, that's what I meant, kind of intermittently. And all that's for is they're just studying this herd, you know, and so you just have to bring that in. You're not required to seal the hide or anything like that, or you can literally drop it off when the office is closed. They have a box around back. But yeah, so that's the purpose of registration hunts, is just for them to have an extra step in the management of that herd if they decided to limit the number of animals they wanted to take in at any given time.
The registration permits give Alaska Department of Fish and Game a little bit more insight into what's going on.
A little more insight, and a little more control.
Right. And so registration permits can be closed suddenly and without warning. And it is your responsibility to have a way to know if they close or not. Even if you're in the field, you need to have access to some information, whether you have an inReach that you text back home and ask someone to call the caribou hotline for the 40-mile herd, since we're talking about that. They can call the hotline and hear if the troopers close it, or I'm sorry, if Fish and Game close it or not. There is also, like you guys mentioned, the 4-inch lower jaw sample that has to be brought in. That's been the last couple of years for the 40-mile hunt. That's because of fear of overgrazing and the herd is going to crash and they're being overhunted, or the predator levels are too high, or whatever their reason is. I don't really know. I don't think
it's
anybody really knows about it. But
we can get a guy in here to talk about it one of these days.
Yeah, but what a registration permit also does is they give you a deadline to report your tag. Success or failure.
And it's a much tighter deadline.
Right. And the reason is a lot of registration permit hunts are not infinite numbers of harvest allowable. There are a lot of registration permit hunts where if you kill X number of animals out of this, let's just say again, the 40-mile caribou herd, if their quota is 500 animals, as you kill an animal for the 40-mile hunt, I believe it's 3 days to report a successful harvest.
It's 3 days. Yep.
So if you shoot a caribou, you've got to report and file your hunt report online or in person, or mail in your report within 3 days of successful harvest. If you are unsuccessful, it has to be within what?
I believe it's 10 days of close of season.
Yes,
I think that's correct.
I learned a little bit about this.
And if you don't report an unsuccessful harvest within 10 days of the end of the season date, or within 10 days of them shutting it down by emergency order, then you can be penalized by not being eligible the following calendar year for any registration permits.
Right. Now, and to be fair, there is one exception, and I only bring this up because it happened to me. And this was actually on a draw tag, not a registration tag, but on the concept of closing hunts early. I was drawn for the Nilchina herd tag years ago, and it was in the year that
which is a caribou hunt.
It's a caribou hunt. Yes, it's a caribou herd that's on the
south side of the Alaska range.
South of us, but it's still fairly north, I guess. But they dance around the Alaska range, and so I believe that year they gave out 2,000 tags, and a week before opening, they announced that due to emergency closure or due to emergency order, they were going to shut it down after the first 250 were reported. Now, everybody freaked out and everybody's wondering what the heck, because typically with that tag, you have from August 10th till March 31st because it's your tag. There's 2,000 of them. You just go get your caribou whenever you want. Now, the troopers did make an exception on that one, that there was not going to be a closure for the first 3 days. That way people could go out there maybe that didn't have an in-reach or a way to get back to people, and they didn't have to check in every single day to see if it was open. And it was a risk they were willing to take, that for those 3 days they didn't expect 250 to be taken. Yeah. And I don't think there were. I think it stayed open for like 2 weeks or something.
That particular year, my brother had drawn one of those permits as well. And that hunt actually stayed open for like 2.5, 3 weeks.
Did it really?
After I got back from sheep hunting, early August, it was still open. And I said, well, let's just go down there and go hike in and shoot one. And we did. And that was one of the last weekends that it did stay open, but there was a very low harvest number that year.
It was.
But so that being said, that's how registration permits are. That is what R means at the beginning of a hunt number. If it's not HT for harvest ticket, it's either going to have an R at the beginning of it, usually, or there's another common one, which is the number starts with D. And I say the number starts with D, you know what I mean? So for instance, you'll see something to the effect of, let's go down to sheep in unit 20.
Keep things interesting here.
Sheep in unit 20. And so the top column is within toke management area, one ram with full curl horn or larger every 4 regulatory years by permit. And this is for both non-residents and residents. The hunt number is DS102, and then it gives the season dates. So D is draw. And then a lot of times after the D, or in registration after the R, if it's RC, it's registration caribou.
Yep.
If it's RM, it's registration moose.
So what does the S stand for?
Sheep.
Hey, okay, there we go.
Yes, but there are very few registrations.
Stick with us, Mo.
I know. I'm just in this one we're talking about.
Yes. So for this particular one, we're talking about a draw sheep, and then this hunt number is 102. That's for the toke management area. Now we're going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. You ready for this? We're going to talk about draws, and we're also going to talk about the toke management area and speak about a management area. So first, we're going to hit on draws, but first, James has a point.
I wanted to just mention one thing as we're talking about this section of the permits.
Okay.
The difference between resident and non-resident, if you're looking at this, typically has to do with restrictions, added restrictions. For instance, a lot of areas, if you look at certain regions for moose, maybe it's a any bull area for residents, Spike Fork 54 brow tine for non-residents, or in some cases when we were looking at I forget what it was, if it was bears or bison. No, it was the bison. Bison for residents is 1 tag by draw permit every 10 regulatory years.
Right.
So you and I could draw that tag today. We can wait 10 years, put in for it again, draw it again. Yeah. Whereas with resident or non-resident, it's once in a lifetime tag. Right. So that's really where the breakdown there gets it.
Right.
We had talked on the restriction section of it, but mostly that's the difference is restrictions.
Correct. So draws in Alaska.
Yep.
Let's just talk about draws for a second. The draw system for Alaska is unlike most anything else that you'll see in the lower 48. It's a completely, and I say this with air quotes, random draw system.
That's what they say.
They say it's random.
I know some people that have drawn some stuff where I don't think it's so random. They have to know some politicians somewhere.
I think
nobody's that lucky.
I think it's random, but there are a lot of opinions contrary to that. We'll leave that one alone. But that being said, Alaska does have a draw system where a highly coveted tag, or if it's in, let's just say it's for sheep. You know, there are some certain areas in the Chugach Mountains down outside of Anchorage that are shut down to hunting, with the exception of like 1 sheep permit per drainage, you know, for a certain area. They'll really restrict that down. Now, for what we're talking about here in sheep hunting with 20D on page 112 of the regs, the top line is the toke management area. This is not like a national park or national preserve type of area that's giving out 1 or 2 tags. This is a unit where it is technically over-the-counter access per se. Okay, so for instance, you can go hunt bears in Tok. You can go walk into this area, but you're not able to use motorized access.
Correct.
Within a certain date parameter. We'll just say it that way. So if you scroll back up to the top of Unit 20, it'll give you a breakdown of each individual restriction area that you'll see throughout the pages pertaining to Unit 20. So the Tok management area is under topic 17 on page, what's this page number?
107.
107. So it says, it gives the boundary specifications, and then it says at the bottom, this area is open to sheep hunting by permit only. Hang on here. Doesn't it talk about controlled use? Maybe not.
So it depends on the management area.
You know what? You might be able to take a four-wheeler into the Tok management area.
So there's management areas all over the state. And certain management areas, and they tend to be tied to a town. Like there's the Fairbanks management area, there's the Tok management area. And some of them are, and there are several that are not tied to towns necessarily.
Right.
But basically, these are sections, they're subunits within a subunit, basically.
Yeah.
They are an area that maybe had an extra amount of pressure at one point and they're trying to recover a certain population, or maybe they just don't want, maybe there's tundra that they don't want messed up by four-wheelers, so they added an extra regulation that in this particular area between this river and this ridge, you cannot ride your four-wheeler.
Right.
And so
a lot of
you have to look deeper than just the unit and the subunit even sometimes, depending on the exact area you're going to end up in.
A lot of controlled use areas and restricted areas and management areas that are labeled as such are managed like that to provide high trophy quality animals.
Yeah.
So the unit that I was thinking of when I talked about Tok, I was wrong about that. You can take a four-wheeler into the Tok management area, and I know someone that's done it, and that's killed a ram that way. I was confusing that with the Delta controlled use area, which if you read through the boundaries of it, this is item 13 on page 107. At the bottom of that paragraph, it says this area is closed to any motorized vehicle or pack animal for big game hunting, including the transportation of big game hunters, their hunting gear, and or parts of big game from August 5th through 25th. And then it talks about how it does not inhibit motorized access to the area for hunting or transportation of game on the Richardson Highway, which is the highway that dissects that unit, or the use of aircraft at the, and then we're going to blank out the name of the airstrip because I don't want to be too specific. If you want to look it up, you can read it for yourself.
Now, to tell you how serious they are about that non-motorized access.
Yes.
That's the only part of the whole thing that's in bold lettering. So they really want you to pay attention.
So that's the point of a lot of these management areas.
There are a plethora of motorized access options into the Delta controlled use area that are completely legal after August 25th that you can use for hunting if you're going to go moose hunting or sheep hunting. If you draw the later season permit that the season is for September, you can ride a four-wheeler into some of those areas if you desire and access that region that way. But a controlled use area is a further regulation, like you said, on top of your other regulations that you have to normally consider.
Yep.
So not only is the Delta controlled use area a draw permit, but it's also restricted access. Which
now they do have both, don't they? Isn't there a motorized and non-motorized in the Delta?
The August permit is a non-motorized, obviously, because the controlled use, and the September tag, the later tag, you can use motorized access, right? Because it's accessed in September.
So you not only need to look for you find the sheep, you find the area you want to hunt in, you find the animal you want to hunt, you figure out where you want to hunt it.
Yep.
Then you need to look at where you want to hunt it.
Yeah.
And you figure out, okay, it's open at this time. Now, where is this? What are my options?
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to go through a controlled use area to get somewhere.
Yes.
In the area you're hunting isn't. So if you can find a way around that.
Yep.
This particular, the Delta controlled use area, it's non-motorized, non-pack animal, a bicycle. If you can find a good, a hiking trail or something that a bicycle will ride down, that's a good option. Or pack raft. I've known guys to do that into there.
Yep.
Or they hike in with a pack raft, go kill a sheep, and then hike down, put it in the pack raft, and float out.
Yeah.
And some of these non-motorized areas do allow pack animals. And so if
some of
you're
them
looking
do.
for a guided hunt, there are several
Yes.
guides that hunt in these areas that use horses.
Yes.
And that would be super cool.
The Wood River controlled use area down outside of Healy, where a very well-known guide, Coke Wallace, Midnight Sun Safaris, and he's been running down there since I believe the 80s, and he's got a horseback operation where he guides down there and has a nice big operation that goes on there. Nobody's in there riding four-wheelers. Nobody's in there landing airplanes in crazy places. It's an access by foot or horse only. I mean, it's a very remote area, and that is a huge controlled use area. So that's somewhere where you'd have to get, you'd have to get a horse or just walk a long ways. And, that's a great way of looking at it. If you're hunting on foot and you find an area that's an over-the-counter permit for, say, a moose or, say, a Dall sheep, or even if you just want a spring bear hunt, if the area is a controlled use area and restricted access where people aren't able to use motorized access to get in there, and you're willing to walk, that's a great advantage if you're willing to do it. Now, I wouldn't recommend you do that with moose hunting. That's a good way to end up crippled. But,
take 10 years off your life.
But, for a lot of other species, for caribou, sheep, bears, and so on and so forth, that could be a potentially good option to look at when you're going through the regs and trying to sift through the hunt opportunities. And
the big reason I think this is a huge advantage and a good thing, I actually believe this is a good thing, is because
controlled use areas.
Yeah, there's a general. I'm not going to say it's a general rule, but there's a general understanding in Alaska that if you can get a wheeler on it, you will get a wheeler on it.
Yeah,
and if you try to do that, this happened to me just this last year. If you're trying to hunt, do a still hunting style, and you're just trying to go somewhere and be stealthy and quiet down this trail, and then some guy rides up behind you on a wheeler and completely blows the area out.
Yeah.
I mean, it is just the most annoying and heartbreaking thing that can happen when you've put in hours to get into somewhere. So
that or missing.
Yeah, that's true. That's pretty bad. But so if you're specifically wanting to get on foot off the road system and get out somewhere, these are a great opportunity. Yeah. I mean, if you do run into somebody else, they're probably just like you. So
I'm not going to go into any kind of detail on controlled use areas that I may or may not have hunted in the past number of years, but let's just say I've utilized many different controlled use areas for multiple different species.
Yep.
And because I'm willing to just sweat and just get farther away from the road than a lot of people are, I've had some pretty great success with multiple different species.
Now,
and again, I'm going to leave that at that. But
type of area in a unit. So you have units, you have subunits, have management areas, controlled use areas, and corridors.
The corridor. Let's talk
about multiple
that.
corridors, though.
There are.
Yes. So talk to us about the main corridor that we are all thinking of right now.
Is the Dalton Highway. The Dalton Highway corridor.
Yes.
I don't know if there's another word in there or not, but the Dalton Highway corridor starts at the Yukon River, and it goes all the way north on the Dalton Highway.
So let me back this up a little bit. There is a road that goes from Fairbanks all the way up to Prudhoe Bay on the northern coast of Alaska. 500-mile road. And, okay, it's about 500 miles. I think the actual Dalton Highway is like 416.
I've
seen that sign a number of times.
Fairbanks,
100 of it's paved, maybe.
From Fairbanks, you leave on the Elliott Highway.
Correct.
And actually, you leave on the Steese, you end up on the Elliott right out of Fairbanks. You go about 80 miles on the Elliott to Live and Good. And from there, it's 416 miles or whatever.
Live and Good is the junction that you can either turn left and keep on going over to the other village over there, or you can continue north and hit the Dalton Highway, and that goes 416 up to Prudhoe.
Now, this is a good
right
point.
At 500 miles.
This is a good point for people that aren't familiar with the state. Maybe you're new or just looking at coming up here. But Alaska does this annoying thing where a road will take a sharp turn, 90-degree turn, and it's the same road, but if you go straight, you're actually on a different road.
Yes.
It's all over the place. That happens in Fairbanks. It happens out of Fairbanks.
It's
it happens
the last
in the boonies.
frontier. I like it that way.
I love it. And so what they're talking about is there's a point there where the actual road you were on turns a sharp and goes out towards some other villages.
And then
down
the road
that
that you're on changes in name.
the road that you're on
Correct.
changes if you just stay straight and just keep going. And so
on the Dalton Highway, if you follow that eventually, you'll get up to the Yukon River Bridge.
Yep.
Which that's exactly what it sounds like it is. Crosses the Yukon River.
It's a big bridge.
But
big
the
river.
Yukon River is also the boundary for use of firearms in a 5-mile corridor to the Dalton Highway from the Yukon River Bridge all the way up from there.
Yep.
So the Dalton Highway exists for what purpose originally?
Oil.
Oil, because Prudhoe is the main producer of oil.
Yep.
Now, originally, did you guys know this, that they were not originally going to make the Dalton Highway public use?
Yeah. I had read that.
It was originally supposed to just be for oil.
There's actually a really cool area right there at the bridge, or actually it's just past the bridge onto the right side, where it gives you a lot of history about it. So if you ever do make it up that way, make sure you actually take a stop.
It's a Dalton Highway Visitor Center, place for tourists to go where hunters who aren't from here get off the road. You can go over there and we'll kill the animals.
Usually I blow right past that spot of the road.
Well, you've also been
Sorry, no, I've been up and down that road for about as long as I can remember. I have driven the road all the way from top to bottom and bottom to top many, many times.
So without going into detail about why. Okay. So from the bridge up, that is a no gun zone, no gun hunting zone.
Yeah.
Anywhere within a 5-mile distance from the road on either side. So if you go off the road in a directly straight stretch and then you walk due northeast for about 5 miles, but you don't know that the road does a dog leg about a mile up from where you parked, you're not 5 miles off the road. So OnX Maps and I believe Go Hunt Maps they have it, has the 5-mile corridor marked on your satellite map imagery. So that's a great way. If you're walking off the road 5 miles to go, try to shoot a caribou or something like that, and you want to shoot it with a rifle, then you've got to be outside that 5-mile corridor.
There's also no motorized access.
Correct. I was just going to say that. It's also non-motorized. So you can't just run up there with a 4-wheeler.
Yeah.
And you can't use a gun inside the corridor. So what's the most popular method of hunting inside the corridor, Mariah?
Foot. Oh, inside the corridor. Sorry. Yeah. Well, obviously on foot. Bow hunt.
Bow hunting.
Yeah.
Correct. So in the last few years, we've seen a huge uptick in outdoor media people coming up to Alaska, driving up the haul road in a U-Haul or something like that, and doing a do-it-yourself or a DIY caribou bow hunt. And that's an affordable way to come up to Alaska and have an over-the-counter permit. It's a harvest ticket hunt.
Yes.
I believe it's also registration in some places, is it not?
It depends on which area you're in.
Yeah, and so the Dalton Highway also intersects multiple different game management units.
A lot of game management units.
Of them.
Do your research. As we said, this road is 400 plus miles long, and not all of it has caribou. Mainly the northern, third or 2/3?
I would say the northern half.
Okay. So the northern section of road is where a lot of these guys are doing their caribou hunts, mainly north of the Brooks Range.
I'd say most of the caribou hunts are done in the last third to quarter. Is where you're going to see most of that.
Yeah.
Now, south of the bridge, there are caribou too, but that's not including the corridor.
Correct.
That is outside the corridor.
South of
region.
the Yukon, that is a different hunt altogether.
Yep.
So north of the Brooks Range is what we call the North Slope. And that is a giant, flat, wet desert wasteland of Alaska.
I love it.
That is a very, very unique place of the state.
Yeah.
And if you haven't been there and you want to go there and you live in Alaska, you should just drive up there sometime and just see it in August. And if you don't like bugs, don't get out of your vehicle because they'll just about carry your truck off with you in it. The state bird mosquito is strong and alive and well up there. Anyway, though, so the North Slope is where a lot of these bow hunts take place for do-it-yourself caribou hunters. That is a like I said, an increasingly popular do-it-yourself hunt for non-residents that don't want to have to pay for a guide. They can kind of do their hunt at their own pace. You just spot and stalk from the road. Now, you cannot shoot on, from, or across a drivable surface.
Correct.
So you can't hunt and shoot from the road or across it or, anything on the road.
Yeah.
So,
which If you're bow hunting, that's extremely unlikely.
Correct.
Not impossible. It's not unheard of.
You would be, especially with caribou, you're on one side of the road. A lot of times you're hunting caribou and you're using the road because that's the only thing
cover.
They can't. So you use it as cover. Then you got to cross.
Yeah, sometimes that's your only terrain feature to hide behind. So anyway, we were talking about draws. Mm-hmm. So the Alaska draw system is, again, in air quotes, completely random draw.
There's no point system.
There is no point system like there is in a lot of the lower 48 states. So what is your draw application deadline, Mariah, every year?
December 15th?
It's December 15th at 5:30 p.m.
Yeah, it's a weird time. I don't know why it's not midnight.
It is not midnight. And I'm sure there are many heartbroken individuals.
Anyone that didn't put in for a tag this year, I warned you. I gave you the heads up in the episode beforehand.
So if you hadn't found our podcast yet,
we understand.
If you hadn't listened to the episode, though,
better luck next time.
Yep.
Yes. So that being said, the draw hunt application deadline is December 15th. Now it opens a good while before that. I think it
opens November 1st. I want to say.
I thought it was November 1st.
I can verify that
when
really
you
fast,
can start applying for tags.
It is November 1st through December 15th.
Okay, so you have a month and a half.
Yeah.
To do your homework. Well, I mean, really, you have all year to do your homework. I mean, what am I saying? Mm-hmm. But you have a month and a half to get it done and put in your applications. They're usually $5 per application. You get 6 applications per species, and you can split those up on different particular hunt applications. Yes. You can go as many as you want. You can go 1 per hunt for 6 different draws, or you can put all your eggs in one basket like I do.
Yep.
If I'm going to go in, I'm going to go in.
That's my strategy,
I'm throwing all my chips on the table. I'm just going to go for it.
I've tried the whole 2 here, 2 there, 1 there, 1 here.
I don't know one single person that's ever drawn a tag in history that's split up their applications like that, ever. Anybody I know that draws any permits on a regular basis is like, oh, yep, I put in all 6 for that sheep tag and I got it. Well, okay, there you go.
So, oh, no, go ahead. Sorry.
Anyway,
I'll wait.
So I was going to say December 15th is a cutoff, and then unlike a lot of lower 48 states, at least that I'm aware of, we have a pretty quick turnaround for heartache.
We do. It's actually coming up.
February the 17th, I believe, is Alaska Heartache Day, which, as Fish and Game calls it, Draw Results Day.
Yep.
Well, that's the day that they release all the draw results.
That's the day you find out how much money you donated to the state.
You get to look up your name and see how you got nothing, and then you look up your friend's name or some popular Alaskan, well-known Alaskan who's got 5.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. Yep. So I remember last year, our friend Tyler Friel did an episode on Draw Day. He and Frank he and his hunting partner Frank had party drawn this very highly coveted sheep tag. And one of them, after they looked up their results, they said to the other guys on the podcast, "You're dead to me." But that's how it feels to draw an ultra high coveted tag in Alaska, because we just don't know what that's like.
Just like the bison tags. I mean, and that's kind of almost the thing that sucks about the whole I'm very grateful that there is a no point system here.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I know people that put in for that bison tag for 20 years. Yeah. And the reality of it is your chances this year are no better than any of your chances in the years prior.
I haven't put in for draw tags for 2 or 3 years. Well, this year, it just didn't happen. It wasn't going to happen. There was a lot of stuff happening and I didn't have time. Time and funds and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But, I don't know if it was last year and the year before, both of them, I was like, December 15th, somebody sent me a text, don't forget to put in draw tags. I'm like, okay, I got all day. And, I get home at 6 and I couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so for those times, for like next year, I'll be real glad. Oh yeah, there's no point system.
Yeah, exactly.
I got just as much chance as anybody else. But at the same time, I have put in a lot, and it's like, I've got mixed feelings. When I hear somebody say on a podcast in the lower 48, yeah, man, I finally just put all my points toward this one hunt I really wanted to do when I knew I could do it and got this hunt. And I'm like,
okay.
Okay. But the years leading up to that,
now,
there's pros and there's cons.
I agree. To me, I look at it from a mathematical standpoint. If you have a random draw opportunity every single year and you've put in it for 20 years, odds are the application or that the applicant's number is likely higher now than it was when you started for the majority of hunts. More folks are putting in.
Yeah.
Every year you have, okay, let's just say it this way. If you're going to put in one application and there are 5,000 applicants.
Yeah.
Okay. You have a 1 in 5,000 chance 10 years ago. You have a 1 in 5,000 chance 9 years ago. and we can go on and on with this math.
And on the back of the sheet, they do give you those.
Just because you put in for so many years does not mean that you have a better chance every year after that.
Yeah.
You know, it's a random start from scratch draw every single year.
Supposedly. Allegedly.
I'm sticking with that until I see otherwise, you know.
Now, you know,
anyway.
Yeah. So
that being said, if you are scrolling through the regulations and you see a D at the beginning of a hunt number.
Oh, that's where we're at. That's right. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. If you see that it's a draw hunt, you can look into that and, you know, at the next draw application period, you can submit your applications for that.
Yep. Now, and this is what I raised my hand and I was going to talk about earlier, but decided to wait, is if you're the next person,
yes.
or if you're looking at coming up here for a hunt and you're looking at these, if you see a T,
yes,
especially if you live in a city, a town that has a grocery store or anything like that, and that isn't super rural, or you're a non-resident especially, ignore it. It doesn't apply.
What does T stand for,
T
James?
stands for tier hunt. And tier hunt is subsistence.
They have a tier. Tier 2.
Sure.
Just
I was just going to say tier because it doesn't apply to the people that are listening, unless you live in that area. Now, and we've talked about this a little bit before with the tier 1 and the tier 2 subsistence hunts, and there's different requirements for each one, but all of them basically require you to live in a very rural area where you're going to have access to a specific herd or a specific animal within that region that they don't want other people taking. When we have the option to go north, south, east, west, we can go wherever we want.
Yes.
Some of these people that live in these areas don't have that option. And so it's a specific hunt designated for these people in this region that have
users.
Maybe they don't have, you know, the ability to drive their truck somewhere because they're a flight only area, you know, or something like that. So now, not all rural areas have these, but if you see this in the regulations and you're just looking to come up for a DIY hunt or something like that, or you're a GI at any of these bases, or you're just a regular resident of Fairbanks or Anchorage or any of these towns, just look on. You know, don't let that clutter the regulations for you.
And I have one more thing to say, that there are a few hunts where the hunt number and designation will not have a direct letter correlation to the species. There are some hunts that begin with a Y or
so a Y is a youth.
Right.
But this one says YM and it's for bison. What does that mean?
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
There are some that don't correlate. For the majority, DS is draw sheep, you know, RM is R moose, you know, and so on and so forth. But there are a few that are different. But anyways, as a general rule of thumb. Now, that being said, let's jump into our next thing, which is non-resident opportunities for all different species. There are a few species as a non-resident that you are not allowed to come up to the state and hunt without a guide. So
or next of kin who is resident.
Correct. So if you don't have any relatives in Alaska and any next of kin qualifying relatives, and you can look that up in the regs and see what they qualify as next of kin, and they spell it out black and white. You can't be having no third cousins come up and you know, call them next of kin and be their acting guide.
Can I say one thing real quick?
Go for it.
So to that point of them being very specific with that, one thing I appreciate about these regs is they are so specific.
Yes.
Now, with that, the reason they're so specific is because they're very well enforced for the most part.
And this is a big state.
It's a big state, but because they're so specific, ignorance is not an excuse on anything. So if I know that the book can look intimidating. It's 200 pages or something like that. We talked about it earlier, but 150 or something.
144.
I was close. But it looks intimidating. There's a lot of long paragraphs in this thing, but if you don't read it, ignorance is not an excuse for getting away with something. So just if you come up and you're trying to do a DIY hunt like Dalton's about to talk about, and you're in an area or going after an animal that you weren't supposed to, or maybe you have your buddies, your stepbrother's second cousin. I don't know if that counts.
No, it doesn't.
Oh no.
But like, and you're, I didn't know that. They're not going to take that as an excuse. So make sure you're reading this. So that's all I wanted to say.
Exactly. So there are a few species of animals that directly require a non-resident to have a guide for a particular hunt in Alaska. And by guide, I mean a registered outfitter or master guide.
Yep.
With an operation that you sign a contract and pay for a hunt under a registered outfit. Those animals are Dall sheep, mountain goats, and brown bear / grizzly bear. Now,
that's it, huh?
I believe so.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's cool. It. So that being said,
it's the white animals.
Brown bears aren't white.
Yeah, but there's a lighter colored side of
there's polar bears in the state.
Yeah, but you can't hunt polar bears. So.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, if you're not an indigenous person, then you can't hunt polar bears in Alaska. We just want to clarify that.
Well, politically correct.
Correct. Nice. Yes. Thank you very much.
Well done.
Why, thank you. So that being said, if you have the desire to come to Alaska and hunt brown bears or Dall sheep or mountain goat or grizzly bears in the interior, you have to have a registered guide for the hunt. Now that is due to, with sheep and goats, it's due to two things. It's difficulty and technicality of terrain and the danger involved with where they live and how to get at them. And particularly with sheep, it's to do with the legality of the take of an animal. So if you're not familiar with what makes a Dall sheep legal, number one, go reference our, episode 10, I believe it was of the podcast, where we went into great detail about what a Dall sheep...
It was episode 10, I can tell you that.
Sure. What a legal Dall sheep means, how it gets there, how to judge it. But guess what? You don't have to do that if you're on a guided hunt. Yeah. Your guide does that for you.
You just have to listen to the guide when he tells you.
Listen to the guide. Yeah. The next thing you should do is go study the outlines and the supplied photographs provided by Fish and Game in the same handbook that we were talking about here. So that's why sheep require a guide. That's why goats require guides. Now, goats don't have to be full curl. Obviously, they don't get there.
That would be a big goat.
Reason that brown bears require a guide is it is a dangerous game species.
Yes.
There is great potential for injury if you screw that up. And there are a lot of non-residents that, that they need to have a guide. Now,
there's a lot of residents that need to have a guide.
A lot of residents that shouldn't hunt, but I think that applies in every state. But at any rate, those animals require you to have a guide for your hunt. So that being said, you can hunt caribou, you can hunt moose, you can hunt sitka black-tailed deer. You can even hunt muskox and bison if you want, if you draw a tag as a non-resident without a guide. So there are multiple different big game options that you can come to Alaska for as a non-resident, as long as it's not a draw permit. If you're just looking for an easy, low point of entry to come into the state and hunt as a non-resident, and you don't have the money for a guide and so on and so forth, you can come up here and do a do-it-yourself float hunt and just hire a transporter to just go fly you out and drop you off and then arrange for a pickup. You can do a float hunt for moose and caribou. You can drive up the Hall Road and do a caribou hunt, which I would say don't have high expectations for that at all.
No.
You're probably not going to shoot a monster.
Give yourself some time.
Yeah, give yourself like 10 days.
And it's a harsh place. When I was in the military stationed here at Wainwright,
it's going to be a steep learning curve.
I knew it was a group of 5 guys and they all went up there. They were light infantrymen. So these guys hiked all the time. Like that was their job. And
if you say so.
They went up there. And I want to say they were gone for 10 days and they came home beat to crap, dude. It was.
Were they hiking out to do the rifle?
They were trying to, yeah. So they were trying to go all the way through the corridor. And the horror stories that I heard.
Did they ever make it 5 miles off the road?
I think they made it finally, but it took them a long time.
Did they ever kill one?
They came back unsuccessful. So that's the thing, is it can be very rough.
You telling that story reminds me of a 40-mile story hunt. So the 40-mile is mostly resident only, right? Or no? No, it's not. See, and there's so many people that post on Facebook that it's resident only to keep or military can't do that. That's not the way it is.
I applaud your reference.
As much as we might wish it was. because it's such a
It's crazy.
That's a whole
topic for another time.
I'm not a big hunter's orange. It's not required in the state of Alaska. If there's a hunt it should be required for, and you should wear it on. it's the 40 mile.
Yes,
especially if you're hunting off the road.
Correct.
But that being, I went in on the 40 mile hunt to a mountainous area on my wheeler, and I went in on that hunt, and there was a bunch of guys in that area because that's kind of where the caribou were. And there was one side of the trail that we were on that you could ride, and one side you couldn't. So on one side, you could do whatever you wanted. You could go pop wheelies and do donuts. They didn't care. The other side, walk only, hike only, right? So the caribou were about 3 miles off on the right side of the trail that I could not ride on. And, I sat there for a couple hours with another guy. We were sitting there talking to each other and going, there's a lot of caribou over there. Yep. It was a beautiful day, sunny day. They're quite a ways away. Yep. Nothing big. Nope. And, we talked back and forth like that for a while, and both finally said, I've shot caribou before. I have no reason to need to hike 3 miles to go shoot a little caribou.
Yeah.
And then have to walk it all back.
To hike it back.
And in a lot of these areas, for you people that have never seen this kind of terrain, it is just
that was actually really easy terrain.
Is it?
That
I've been in
I
spots
was
up there that are not
This wasn't on
good.
the slope. This was the 40 mile hunt.
No, I know. I've been in spots over there that aren't good
this
either.
This was cakewalk, hike.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Okay. Yeah. Dalton knows where I was at, and I'll tell you when we're done. But anyway,
I think half of Fairbanks knows where you're at with that kind of description.
Probably.
I'm pretty sure I already know the trail, but I'm not sure. I'm not going to say anything.
Anyway, I mean, it's the 40 mile hunt, so I'm not super.
That's right.
Anyway, so I was on my way out, and there's a set of switchbacks. So here's more description. I was climbing the switchbacks, and there's these 3 military guys on one small wheeler. I'm on my 750, okay, by myself with my gear, and I can with that thing on that trail. There's nothing stopping me except for no ride laws. These guys, 3 guys on like one little Yamaha 400 or something, and which is a great wheeler, not for 3 guys.
For one guy.
Anyway, and they saw me and they're like, "Hey man, you seen any caribou?" I said, "Yep, they're about 3 miles that way." I pointed them in the right direction, and they said, "Hey, thanks, man." And they took off. And
on foot.
They rode down to the bottom and went on foot. Yeah. And they had like 106 with them or something like that.
Oh my.
And, so I came back into town, went and talked to a buddy, and he's like, "Hey, I'm going back out." And I was like, you know what? Mind if I tag along? I think I'll come with. I want to go back out there, see if they get closer to the trail. And on my way in with them, those 3 guys were coming out, and they had some scrawny little caribou they shot.
And they were so proud of it.
Good for those guys. I'm so glad they got one. But it's
that reminds me of a similar situation I was in where I literally watched them I had nothing better to do. I was out there for a 4-day weekend or something like that, and so I literally just sat there and watched these 2 GIs go miles out there, and I felt happy for them. They got one.
Yeah.
It's like, but yeah. So, it's kind of to get back to the slope, though. The terrain up there is marshy, to say the least.
Okay.
If you don't know where you're going, if you don't know what you're doing, and that's been
walking on the North Slope tundra through the tundra tussocks, if we can call them that.
We can. That's
right. Imagine walking on a waterbed filled with railroad spikes and bowling balls.
Yes. And it's basically little, what would you even say, 1 foot by 1 foot islands, essentially, that just kind of jut up.
They are.
And you can have a 4 foot plus drop off on one of those sides.
Yes. So imagine every foot there is a ball of grass standing about a foot above the dark water line. And you can't step on the ball of grass because it'll roll and you'll twist an ankle. But if you step in between the grass, you're either going to be in ankle deep muck or you're going to be up to your hip. So it's
and I've been buried up to my waist before.
It is otherworldly. It is like nothing else out there.
In the corridor itself, it's a lot flatter than that, even. So there's a lot of the tussocks, but it's more up there. You're not going to necessarily. There are places you'll sink up to your waist, to your hip. It's more just marshy that makes it really hard to hike in.
Yes.
If you watch where you're going, it's not hard to
You almost have to high step everywhere in that type of stuff.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of interesting because a lot of it is you'll have wet patches and dry patches, and you can't get around. You'll kind of have like these low rises, and the last 60 miles is truly completely flat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You have portions in between there, but there's some. You're on the road on the Dalton Highway, you're heading north. I used to drive the road a lot for work.
Yeah.
And so the last 60 miles, that's 60 mile where those hills are. And after that, until you get to Dead Horse, you can't actually go to Prudhoe as a civilian. But Dead Horse and Prudhoe are back to back. And anyway, it's flat. I mean, it's flat as far as the eye can see, except for some bluffs like 100 miles this way and some bluffs 50 miles this way. And when I say bluffs, I mean they stick up 20 feet. So,
but it's flat enough you can see the 20-foot rise.
Yes.
Yeah.
And other than that, it's very, very flat. And so a lot of that, depending on the time of year, you can go in the winter time and it's all frozen. And a lot of it's wind blown, and honestly, that is pretty easy to hike in. A lot of it's so wind blown, you can walk right on top of the snow.
Yeah.
In the summertime, say you go down there and go up there in August, it's going to be nasty.
Yeah.
Mosquitoes, but at the same time, the further north you are, the more flat it's going to be.
Yep.
And so, the big drop offs are mostly just going to be this creek that cuts through somewhere, and it'll be a couple feet or 3 feet.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that's kind of summarizes the basic breakdown of the hunt units, the sub units, harvest tickets, registration permits, and draw hunts.
Yep.
Season lengths, read the regs, people. They vary. They vary regularly between units.
And it's like you'll find a lot of people.
Units either.
And if you talk to, let's say, your buddy that's lived in Fairbanks for a little while, he's going to tell you moose season's from September 1st to September 20th. That is not
15th.
No, it's the 15th.
It used to be 20th.
When did they change that?
A
5 years ago.
Yeah, quite a while ago.
Okay.
5-6 years ago.
So
at least, yeah.
You just lost 4 days of your hunting season, didn't you?
No, because I'm not going to disclose information on that, but it's been a while since I've hunted around town. But yeah, so look that up real quick.
What's that?
Moose. I just want to verify that.
I was just looking at it a minute ago.
Moose is 2 weeks in 20B with rifle. Down here, remainder Fairbanks.
Yep.
September 1st to September.
That's bow.
That's bow.
Yeah.
That's Fairbanks, man.
20B remainder. Yeah. 1st to the 15th.
Yeah. A lot of the state is the 15th now.
Okay. Yeah. That's so they'll tell you it's the 1st to the 15th, maybe.
Yeah.
That is not true.
Season lengths are different
everywhere.
So one thing that is similar to Alaska in the States is season lengths differ for bow to rifle in some areas.
Some areas, yeah.
But that's a lot more area management, area specific type of thing. Residents have like a 7-day moose hunt with bow in the management area around Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Yep.
Whoa.
What?
Okay. Sorry about that. I just got a very interesting text that we'll have to revisit in a later podcast.
Okay. Cool. But yeah, so if you go, like, let's say if you're hunting around the Anchorage area and you're looking to get out with your bow, Unit 14 has an extra season that actually opens up on, I want to say it's the 25th of August for moose. And so you can get out there a little bit beforehand. Now, whether you want to or not is up to your preference. If you're just looking for moose, or if you're actually wanting to hunt deeper into the rut, you'd want to wait a little bit longer than that. But if you go into all of these areas, just like Dalton was talking about with the hunt/permit column and the open to column and everything like that, there is an open season column. I think you'd referenced it in reference to the black bears where it says no close season. That is a very important thing to look into. Obviously, I haven't looked into for moose in my area for a while, or in the area that I live. But it's something you need to look at first. Once you dial in, like these guys were saying, the species you want to hunt, the time, the area you're going to be in. You figured out your unit, your subunit. You figured out how you're going to get there, which we should touch on a little bit on what are the most common roads that people use to access, most common roads and rivers. The next column over is the time frame you have to be there.
Correct. And
that's very important to look at, specific to your area in that order. You look at it just like that, because that's going to determine the plan for your hunt.
Yeah, exactly. And so the season lengths will sometimes differ for residents and non-residents. From one unit to the next. It'll also vary from subunit to subunit. So 20D will have different season lengths for different animals,
right?
Versus 20C or 20A or so on and so forth. So anyway, I guess we've kind of covered that as much as we need to. But access for different units, we live in Fairbanks, which is pretty much the hub of the state of Alaska.
It is, yeah.
For the road system.
Yeah.
Which is why all three of us like living here, because we don't have to hire pilots for a lot of the stuff that we want to do. Now,
we also don't have to drive
the Alaska road
20
system.
hours.
Right. The Alaska road system is, how do I say this?
Vast but limited.
Correct.
Yeah.
There's a lot of road, but there is a lot of restricted access from the roads.
Yep.
So, for instance, the Dalton Highway, a lot of that's motorized.
Yep.
I'm sorry, non-motorized. It's a cutoff corridor. You can't ride motorized vehicles up there off the road. So you can't use four-wheelers. You can't use you can't land a plane in that corridor. So you have to fly out of it from a city or from a runway along the road somewhere. Or you have to go somewhere else, Now, if you drive south, it's 6 hours to Anchorage.
Yeah.
For us in Fairbanks. If you drive north,
the way you drive,
it's 10 hours to Prudhoe Bay. Okay.
The way you drive.
Nice. Now, we also have routes to go east and west as well.
Yeah.
If we drive east, it's 3 hours to Tok, and then another
more like 4.
Okay.
Yeah,
so about 4 hours over to Tok, which is due east of us.
I always think it's going to be about 3, and
Yeah,
I'm
and
looking
then
at the
it ends up
road
being-
going, I'm in the middle of nowhere still.
Yeah. But then just past Tok is the Canadian border to our east. If you drive west, that's where the road is the most limited for us. We really don't have that much of a road system going west anywhere from Fairbanks at all.
Yeah.
There's a road, the Elliott Highway that we referenced earlier.
Yeah.
The Elliott Highway goes probably,
It's northeast.
Yeah,
but
it's northwest.
Yeah.
Or northwest.
The
Sorry.
Elliott
Yeah, I'm
Highway
totally
goes
turned
northwest.
around. Yeah. I'm totally turned around.
But it doesn't go that far west.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
In the grand scheme of the state.
It only goes as far as the
And
river.
it doesn't cross the river. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So there is very little western road access.
It stops at the Tonawanda River.
Specifically, so specifically, we'll just kind of lay this out in almost a listicle kind of way. If you're looking for the most common access to a hunting area that you could potentially go to, or a unit that you would be looking at going to, the roads you should pay attention to, if you're looking for general terms, is it almost creates like a wishbone effect, are the big ones. So you would have the Parks Highway that comes up from Anchorage, and that's going to take you through several game units up that way. Now, again, look at the regs for each one. You have the Richardson Highway, which will bring you up from Valdez. Those both meet in Fairbanks. And then from there, you have we have the Steese, which turns into the Elliott, which turns into the Dalton, which we just talked about. And so you have those three main roads. Now, off of those, the most common ones you'll find is the Steese that we just talked about. It's one of those, again, where you turn...
And that goes northeast of Fairbanks.
Northwest.
Nuh-uh. The Steese goes northeast. No, that was the Elliott.
Oh, the Elliott. I'm so turned around today. I need more Red Bull, man. So it's one of those things where you come out of Fairbanks on the Steese, and you're going to take a hard right. And again, that keeps you on the same road. If you keep going straight, you're going to be on a different road.
And
that's
the
Elliott
Steese Highway also ends at the Yukon River.
Yes,
it does.
In Circle Hot Springs.
Yes.
So anyway,
continue. Now that's if you want to access the northern area. If you want to access some of the Alaska range, there's the Denali Highway, which actually connects the parks to the Richardson. You can cross over in there.
It's about 132 miles or so.
Something like that. It goes from Cantwell to Paxson. And so you'll be able to cross over into there and get access to a lot of great hunting areas there. And then, like you said, the road over to Tok is the Alaska Highway, I believe, that leads out of the state.
Yes.
That'll take you all the way to the Canadian border and take you through, again, a lot of different units and subunits and everything. So that's why I say it's kind of vast but limited, because these road systems are long. They are very long road systems. And they will get you to a lot of places, but in between all of those roads is a lot of country.
Yes.
And so when you're kind of looking for more of just a general, what road are you going to be into? Those are the big ones you want to focus on.
Correct.
So, and then off of those, there's a million little roads that we're not going to talk about.
And there are, okay. So like you just said, there are multiple little offshoot roads that'll go 60 miles, 70 miles, 100 miles that we're not going to disclose because some of them we've hunted off of. And again, when we say we've used a road to hunt, we don't mean we road hunt. If I'm driving 5 miles if I'm driving 5 hours out of Fairbanks, I ain't road hunting.
No. Yeah.
These are roads that we've used to gain access to a different region, and then we branch off the road from there, whether it's hiking or four-wheeling or boating or flying.
Yep.
So at any rate, there are a lot of road access areas to get you to a general region, but from there, it is to your benefit to walk, boat, four-wheeler. I know I already said boat, but raft.
Yep.
If you were to do a float from a river that starts or that intersects the road at one spot and comes back around to the road, you can do kind of a round trip like that and float from the road back to the road. And there are several good options to do that. And
get
you
dropped
can
off or something.
Yeah, exactly. And anyway, so there are a lot of road options if you choose to go that way. I that's mostly pertaining to Alaska residents. And, Alaska is the last frontier, but there are sections of road that get hammered with hunting pressure.
Yes, there is.
There are a lot of hunters that hit road systems. If there's a road there or a four-wheeler trailer or a four-wheeler trail there, there's going to be somebody on it during hunting season. It's just going to be how it is. And that's why you need to take advantage of creative access, let's just say. So that's where the different levels of access gain you better hunting potentially. Usually you'll have better hunting the more money you spend to get away from the road systems.
I was just going to ask you, in your experience, tier those out by price.
Okay, so road hunting is pretty cheap. Road hunting is fuel charge and, flat tires. And by the way, none of these roads are like 80-mile-an-hour roads either.
No, they're not. 65. That's the fastest you're going to go.
Yes. So road hunting.
There's troopers listening.
Hold my Sprite. Okay, so if you're not road hunting, the next best access to get off of a road as far as rank of cost is going to be ATV or UTV. Okay. A high quality four-wheeler, if it's usable in that area, if it's not a controlled use area, a high quality four-wheeler starts at, I don't know, $8,000 nowadays.
I paid $8,000 for mine and it was pert near brand new. So yeah.
So, and you can go as far as you want with these toys.
And a lot of that's going to depend on the kind of trails you're riding.
Correct.
But also
let's just generalize this.
Yeah. You're not going to get a Can-Am for $8,000, but you'll get a
You used to. We don't need to get into all that.
$8,000 to $10,000 for a four-wheeler. $10,000 to $15,000 for a side-by-side. If not way more than that for a side-by-side. Okay. That's your next best option if you want to get off of a road.
Yeah.
If you don't just want to if you don't just want to be stuck to your truck, I'm talking about fall hunting season.
Well,
ATV or UTV is the next level up. And then from there, you have boats, which
bust out another 1,000.
Boat is break out another 1,000.
I would say underneath the ATV, UTV would be a road to road float hunt.
I'm getting to that.
Okay.
So I'm going to classify that under hunting from your vehicle from the road because literally anybody can do that.
Yeah.
Now,
they might die,
after ATVs, you have boat hunting. Okay.
Yep.
Now, boats are significantly more expensive than four-wheelers and side-by-sides, especially nowadays. If you're priced out a boat from, say, just the boat shop, you're going to spend an arm and a leg. I mean, it's the price of an expensive pickup truck.
Just the motor is going to cost you what the four-wheeler did.
Yeah, exactly. If not
more.
Well, right. Depending on how big of a boat you get.
Yeah.
But a boat enables you to get even farther off the road. But then you have to think about, well, how many folks in Alaska have boats? A lot. A lot of people have ATVs, or I'm just going to start saying four-wheelers or wheelers because I feel wrong saying ATV.
I do too.
But
quads.
A lot of folks have no quads.
That was lower 48.
No. A lot of folks have wheelers, and a lot of folks up here have boats. Now, you're going to see a huge hodgepodge of what kind of boats guys hunt out of.
Not to mention wheelers.
There are a ton of varieties of hunting boats, we'll call them, ranging from a 12-foot aluminum boat that you could just about sneeze and put a hole through. And guys are running a 1980s Evinrude motor on them, and they're still killing moose with them.
That sounds specific.
Not with the boat, but...
There's laws about that, too, in the regs, actually, if you want to read them.
Correct. All the way up to the guys that have like a 25-foot boat with 150 horse or even more, and they'll go throw that in the Yukon River or a large body of water, and they'll use that to get access to
airboats in the flats.
Airboats are basically like a boat with an airplane motor on the back of it, and they're about as loud as they sound.
They can go across swampy areas, though, and through sloughs and stuff that motorized.
Now, because of that, there are still regulations in a lot of these areas
that regulate
specifically airboats.
And a lot of that's even also hovercraft.
Yeah, correct.
Even more so than that.
So, that being said, the next level up from boat access is the almighty. It's the airplane.
Mm-hmm.
And the airplane is the backcountry hunter's best friend.
Yeah.
Because there are a whole lot fewer folks in Alaska that have airplanes. And there are even a whole lot fewer folks that have airplanes that can fly people. So there is a very select community of folks that can even be flown by pilots that are eligible to fly them.
Yeah.
So to be flown for a hunt, a pilot has to be a transporter. Has to be a licensed up and up transporter, unless you've got like a buddy that you have a deal with or something like that, which, you know, if your good friend, you know, flies you out hunting and you guys hunt together, that's awesome. That's a great friend to have. Good friends are pilots. That's just how it is. But most folks don't have access to that. Okay. So you have to, that final step that's going to separate you from the competition. Because like I said, if you have a four-wheeler, somebody else has a four-wheeler.
Yeah.
If you've got a boat, somebody else has a bigger boat or a faster boat or a boat that can run shallower that's going to get past you. So it's all about how far can I get from the beaten path, right?
Now, I'm going to say this with a grain of salt because I don't have the information right in front of me, but I do believe I read somewhere that Alaska does actually have the highest per capita plane ownership.
Oh, I'm sure.
That's because we have like under 1 million people in the entire state.
Correct.
How many people? Yeah,
it's like 700,000 now.
Yeah.
It's under 1 million.
Too. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it's under 1 million for the entire state.
Keep it that way.
Per capita, we do have a lot of pilots.
Yes,
that is true, but not. I would venture to say the majority of those pilots, I'm sure, are not licensed transporters.
No, and they probably have it to get to their own hunting spot that they're not going to take you to.
Exactly. Now, that being said, if you are interested in paying the premium price, several $1,000s for a transport flight out to the middle of nowhere, then we're going to reference what Mariah was talking about, and that's a float hunt. A great way to cover a lot of country on a fly-in hunt is a float hunt, where you get dropped off on a gravel bar on a river somewhere, and you float down to the designated pickup spot. That enables you to cover a lot of country and not have to really pack anything back out to the airstrip to get picked up at.
It's a very, very low impact, hunting impact.
Correct.
Because you're in a boat.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. You're not making trails through the middle of nowhere.
Yep.
And it again, to me, the biggest thing is it allows you to just, okay, well, I don't like this spot. Get back in the boat. Just float down river. Just raft it out. Whether you want to do it with pack rafts or a big frame raft, and, you know, you can do it however you want. And there are rental companies in Alaska that you can rent boats. You can rent rafts from. And now, the one thing I will say about fly-in hunting is you need to be thinking about this well ahead of when you want to go. Transporters in Alaska are at an all-time backed up rate right now. I have some friends that I'm not going to mention their names that they were trying to get a fly-in hunt scheduled, just a DIY drop transport hunt for this fall 2023. And I couldn't find them anybody that was, number one, either open for this fall or that wasn't charging $6,500 for a drop off and pickup. And that was without getting a moose.
Yeah.
And the pilots told me, oh yeah, if you shoot a moose, tack on another $2,500.
And for those listening, the reason for that is that most of these planes you're going to get dropped off on are very small, and they do have a very limited payload that they can carry. Correct. So if you come back with just you and your gear, you're going to fly out with just you and your gear the way you came in. If you come out with a 800-pound moose, then
that's a 4 to 5 trip deal.
Yeah, they're going to be able to load, and unless they have access to a long enough road or a long enough airstrip and a big enough plane, that's at least 2 extra trips.
Well, he can always,
at the very minimum.
Yeah, he can take more out than he can take in. Right?
And so fuel costs these days.
Yes. So everything is getting more expensive in Alaska, and air transport services are having to accommodate for that. So that being said, if you are going to do a fly out hunt, there's never a better time to book it than now. Get on that list, get ahead of the game. And now, that being said, a lot of these transporters do have pack lists and weight limits that you have to stay inside of, where you can't have, they'll say whatever you can put on your person, then plus you can have, let's say, 55 pounds of gear in your pack. No more than that. That's 55 pounds plus what you got on your person. So you wear your binoculars. They don't count your rifle weight usually. But what's in your pack, 55 pounds, man? That's clothes. That's your shelter. That's all your food for, a week to 10 days.
And they will weigh you, so don't think you're getting away with it.
They weigh your stuff.
Yeah. You ain't getting away with it.
And if it's over, then the Crocs are coming out, baby.
Yeah.
Which you don't want that to happen.
No.
Crocs are an essential item. I'm going to go back and put that in episode 12.
Edit episode 12.
Crocs need to be in your essential item. Never leave your pack.
If you ain't crocking, you ain't rocking.
That's correct. So, at any rate, there are a lot of things to consider about fly-in hunts, and we'll cover that in some other episode, some other time.
But that's going to be a whole episode right there.
But that being said, I would say that fly-in hunts are the ones that I've had the best experience in as far as not having any other competition.
Yeah.
Generally, a good transporter service has an exclusive area that he pretty much works by himself, meaning there aren't a lot of other transporters in that area dropping off hunters on top of you. And he's not going to put you on top of a different hunter that he dropped off last week. He's not going to put 2 moose hunters on the same airstrip. He knows that's asking for a gunfight. So,
literally.
So that being said, pick a quality transporter, pick a safe transporter. And, after you pick your area out, then get on Google and start looking for some options in the area.
Yeah.
So
you can look up specifically, just find, the biggest town near wherever it is. It doesn't have to be a big town. In Alaska, there's not a whole lot of those, but you can look up the general area people live in that area and just look up transporter, or guide or whatever it is. And most of the time it'll pop up pretty easily.
Air taxis.
Yeah. That's
So anyway, I think that's about as basic as we can get. I know we tried really not to dive off into a lot of different things.
If you can't tell, it's hard not to do that.
Very difficult because we have so many little different tangents that we want to go down and talk about little individual things, and we didn't want to do that. So
when we're not on the mics, just so everybody's aware, these conversations can go till midnight or later, easily.
There can be more time not on the mic trying to figure out how we're going to talk about this or
or what specifically what we're not going to talk about.
Just exactly, and just be concise about it. Yeah. So anyway, if we didn't cover what you wanted to hear about concerning Alaska hunt opportunities, email us at thenorthernhunter.com. Click the email contact us link and let us know what we didn't talk about that you wanted to hear about. Yep. And if we did harp on something a little bit too much, you know what? Get on there and send us an email and tell us that we're proficient.
And to that point, I love getting feedback, positive or negative. I mean, we've gotten from multiple episodes. I kind of manage the social media for the company, and we get a lot of feedback per episode. Things they did like, things they didn't like. We went too in depth. We didn't go in depth enough, and I love reading that, people. So if you have anything, I mean, I obviously use the contact on the website first. That's probably the easiest way to get a hold of us. But I mean, if you want to talk to any of us, you can on pretty much any platform. So
reach out to us. Let us know.
Yep. And now it looks like Mo has a bonus segment for us.
I thought that was a cool way to put that because I was thinking about talking about this at the beginning. Then I forgot to bring that up. So, hey, this is a good time to talk about it.
Sure.
I showed Dalton and talked to him about it. And we kind of looked at these and gazed at them and wished we were rich. I saw these. I thought it was really cool. I thought the podcast would be a good place to bring it up. If anybody on the listening is really rich, then maybe this is something that they want to look at. But the SCI convention is coming up. I think it may even be this February. 25th. Yep, February 25th.
Okay.
SCI Safari Club International, which I'm a member of. So I get their Safari magazine every however often that comes. Yes, I get that. Yes, I'm a club Safari. Yeah, or am I in the record book? Not yet. I haven't. It's on the paperwork.
Okay, gotcha.
I shot a big wolf. We'll talk about that later. But anyway, so I said this caught my eye in the magazine, and I looked it up, and there's more information about it here. I thought it'd be cool if we talked about this.
Mm-hmm.
Dalton really seemed interested when I showed him, and from what you can see here, it says the African Lion Rifle Collection. James, I don't think has seen this before, but what this is 5 rifles that are all made to match. They're all unique, but they're all made to match in a certain way. They're all different calibers, and it's a set that will be sold together.
Those are
at the auction. They're made by John Bollinger, and he was the gunsmith that put the set together, and he actually had a different engraver do each rifle.
Oh, I love how they did the scope rings.
Yes,
on
they
those.
all have custom scope rings. They all come with Soro scopes on them.
Swarovski.
Yes, sorry.
Clarification.
Anyway, so in like all the butt plates have like a different lion on them because it's the African Lion collection. So we're looking at the 7 Rem Ultra Mag is the smallest one. The 300 Rem Ultra Mag. The 338 Rem Ultra Mag. That's Remington, folks. Rem. The 378 Remington Ultra Mag.
375.
Oh, 375. Man, I messed that one up, didn't I?
Yep.
So we talked about 375s. Yep.
Yeah.
The 450 Remington Ultra Mag, which is a very custom round.
Yes. That's a whole lot of rum.
Yeah. Anyway, this would be a very sweet rifle set to own.
If you don't like your shoulders very much.
None of these guns have brakes.
They don't have brakes. They don't have
that one almost
pads.
Looks like it's ported though. I don't know. I can't tell by the picture. Oh, that's engraving.
I think that's just the engraving. Yeah.
That is awesome. Is this a like, are people bidding on this?
This is an auction.
It's going to be auctioned off. So they all say,
and you can't just buy one of them.
No, you have to buy
you get the whole collection.
As a collection, which I think is great. I hope somebody doesn't buy them and split them up, because this is some of the things about them. So the 7 Rem Mag says on it, Ultra Rifle Series, 1 of 5. And they're numbered like that, engraved.
Nice.
Wow.
They each have, I believe, John Bollinger and the engraver's name engraved on them.
Wow.
The wood blanks are from I believe, a Lebanese walnut tree, and they are 5 matching rifle blanks. So the left side of one rifle blank matches the right side of the next one next to it, because they came out of the same piece of wood.
So if anybody wants to donate to my cause so I can review these for you guys, you can Venmo me.
One of my favorite parts of this whole collection is that they're all built on brand new custom made actions directly from Winchester. They are Model 70 classic actions, custom made with consecutive serial numbers for each one of the guns. The Model 70 classic control round feed action for each one of these guns.
That is amazing.
So we're on Safari SCI's website, which is safariclub.org. If you just Google the African Lion Rifle Collection, it'll pop right up.
Hopefully
so
you're drooling over these guys.
Yeah. Oh my Lanta, that's awesome.
The craftsmanship and the quality of the engraving is just phenomenal.
Okay, I got the tree wrong. It's a 300-year-old Turkish walnut tree.
Oh my! Wow.
And so the left side of the stock mirrors the right side of the other.
Is this something people can bid on up to the date, or do they bid
I believe it's
on the day of?
On the day of. Okay. I don't think
so.
It's
we can't see
either.
What it's at now or anything.
No,
like
I don't believe it's online either. I believe
yet.
it's just at. Well, you got to go to the convention.
Man.
Which, I mean, you kind of have to be able to afford to go to the convention to be able to bid on these rifles.
But if you want some eye candy, this is...
Because, I mean, it's amazing what just a high-quality engraved rifle like this would go for by itself. I mean, just one can go for easily well over $100,000.
Oh yeah. All day long.
Yep.
It'll be interesting to see who bids on these and what they sell for. And I really hope whoever buys them does them justice in the display. And
I hope he shoots a lion with all 5 of
every single one.
Yeah, this would be the kind of thing where you got to do 5 Africa hunts, so you can do a hunt with each rifle.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I believe they also come with custom loaded ammunition for each one.
Wow.
I believe I read that somewhere.
Is this gunsmith still alive?
John Bollinger.
I thought I had read somewhere that he'd passed away.
So I believe so, because it says
maybe that was the engraver.
John Bollinger Jr. will display them to the convention attendees.
Sorry for the long pause, folks.
Yeah, it's all right. We're all reading here.
We can get rid of that.
The barrels are Krieger. Yeah, they.
I don't see anything about it.
Anyway,
so
I thought I read something about
that is a beautiful series of rifles.
Yeah, I thought I read something about that
amazing.
Too.
What impresses me about it is the hunting rifle world has gone such the route of weather resistant, stainless steel, and then we went to Cerakotes and various nitride coatings to weatherproof our rifles.
Right.
Synthetic stocks, rubber stocks, fiberglass stocks, carbon fiber stocks now.
Which can look good and do.
They do look good, but it's a very different looking good. It's like comparing a 1960s Mustang to a 2023 Bugatti. It's not the same type of nice car. They're both nice cars.
But but I'd much rather have one of these than a Bugatti.
Yeah, right.
100% agreed. But that's the comparison, though. If you compare like an off-the-shelf, modernized, Cerakoted, semi-custom gun, say from like Fierce that has like all the carbon fiber, all the titanium parts, and it's this new racy, all weatherproof model. But at everybody's heart, I think every true sportsman has a soft spot for a pre-64 Model 70.
Yeah.
There's just something...
This is a classic look.
Something neat about that.
The wood stocks, the blued barrels,
and to see somebody making these right now to this level of customization in a set like this, of this premium quality...
Does it say if that's real gold inlay?
It is gold inlay, yes.
Yeah. I mean, just the detail of engraving on these guns is just exquisite. It's phenomenal.
And the checkering on the stocks is...
So if you're able to afford a Bugatti, you can probably afford this gun collection.
Yes.
But otherwise, you can join us.
If you can afford a Bugatti, then email us at thenorthernhunter.com.
We want to talk.
If you're listening to this podcast right now and you buy this rifle collection, we would really love to be able to handle these at some point. And if that would be like your thank you to us for letting you know,
I'll do you one better.
Yeah,
I'll do you one better. If anyone listening to this podcast right now buys this rifle collection and you live in the contiguous United States, I'll pay your way to come up to Fairbanks to our studio and display these rifles for us so we can each handle them.
So you can be on the podcast.
I don't even want to shoot them.
No.
I just want to look at them and touch them. That's all I want to do. I'll pay your way to our studio.
Right.
So, and we'll have you on the podcast.
Yes, we'll have you on the podcast. We'll do a video podcast and put it on YouTube for you. These guns would, these are literally heirloom quality. I mean, these will go for generations, and they're only going to go up in value. As the market has changed now, guns of this craftsmanship and detail and the artwork of the engraving and the quality of the woodwork and the consecutive serial numbers. I mean, collectors put a serious amount of money into stuff like this. These are going to be worth 10 times what they're worth in 100 years. Right now. Anyway,
but I'm glad you brought this up. Certified new.
Yeah, there you go.
And they come with Mountain Riflery's manufacturer's warranty. So they're warranted too. I don't know if they're warranted, if you take it out in the woods and drop it in the mud.
Oh,
please don't do that.
No, at that point, you're just an idiot.
You take this on a hunt, on a ranch, high fence hunt.
Yeah. And you know what you use during that time? The Stealthy Hunter rifle cover.
There you go. Yes, the Stealthy Hunter rifle cover and also a padded gun case.
And a padded gun case, yeah. Inside the padded gun case.
Yeah, exactly.
If you buy this rifle collection, email Ryan Lampers, and I'm sure he'll make you some gun cases for it.
Yes, get you some lion patches.
I'm sure he'll make a custom one for you.
Yeah, he'll put a little lion's mane on the rifle cover for you. Anyway, well, that's a great segue into, if you like the show and you want to help support the show and you don't know how, go over to stealthyhunter.com. Or click the link on the northernhunter.com and click our banner link to the Stealthy Hunters website, where you can shop gear from Ryan Lampers and his wife Hillary from Stealthy Nutrition and Stealthy Hunter gear with rifle covers, glassing pads, nutritional supplements, and so on and so forth. And more to come someday, I'm sure. So we will see you guys next time. Oh, yes. And use the code.
Use the code.
The Northern Hunter at discount for a discount at checking. At checkout.
That's no spaces, no caps.
I'm going all over myself.
Words are hard.
Yes. Sorry. It's been a long work day, and this is nighttime for all you folks listening. So.
All right. Well, you guys got anything else for us?
I think that's it.
I think
we may have landed this one under 2 hours.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think.
Just under. So
hour 45.
With that being said, if you enjoyed this podcast, definitely give us a rating, give us a comment, and let us know what we can do better. Hit us up on our webpage at thenorthernhunter.com. The contact icon there. You can hit us up anytime. We will do our best to reply.
I hope the audio quality is getting better.
It's getting better.
Yeah. I've been learning the editing process more and more. We're working on getting better equipment. The area we record needs a better soundproofing, and we're working on that too. So
all updates to come. But so hit us up. Thanks for listening, and we will catch you next week.
Have a good one.
Hunt smart, hunt safe.
All right.